Good morning, class. This is Mrs. Satterwhite. We're continuing with the Pythagorean Theorem. Now, you watched a video on it yesterday, so you got an introduction. The Pythagorean Theorem, as you know, is finding a missing side of a right triangle. And a right triangle is indicative with this little square over here. Now, the formula for finding a missing side of a right triangle is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, which refers to the legs of the triangle, leg A, leg B, and the hypotenuse is labeled as C. The hypotenuse is always the opposite side, right from that right angle of the right triangle, and is always going to be my longest side. Okay, let's look at the steps to find the missing hypotenuse. We're just going to worry about the hypotenuse today. The first thing that we're going to do is write our equation. So your first step is write equation. I'm going to write it here in our example. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Our second step is going to be substitute in your numbers. Well, what numbers? Well, we want to have the side lanes. So leg A, leg B, and my hypotenuse is C. Substituting the numbers, let's see, for leg A, I'm going to put in 6 squared. For leg B, that's plus 8 squared. Equals, and I'm looking for my hypotenuse, so that will be C squared. My next step is square my numbers. Okay, so 6 squared means 6 times 6, which is 36, plus 8 squared, which is 8 times 8, 64, equals, I don't have a value for C, C squared. What's my next step? Well, I'm going to add these two numbers. So addition is my next step. I'm going to add 36 plus 64. Now 36 plus 64 gives me 100. So therefore C squared equals 100. Now I'm looking for C, not C squared. So I have to use my inverse operations. The inverse or opposite of squaring a number is taking its square root. So our next step is going to be find the square root. Okay, I'm going to use my radical symbol. The square root of 100 is going to equal the square root of that c squared. Square root of c squared is going to give me c equals, and the square root of 100. Now what number times itself gives me 100? That number would be 10. If you're unsure, please get a calculator. You can put in 100, hit your square root sign, and you will get the number 10. Okay, I will do 4 examples with you before assigning your assignment. Here's a few examples. The first thing that we're always going to do is start with our formula. So we're going to write our equation. I'm going to write a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now I'm looking at my triangle here, and since my hypotenuse is right opposite my right angle, this is going to be C, my hypotenuse. These are going to be my legs. Doesn't matter which one is A or B. So I'm going to say this is A, and let's say this is B. My second step is to substitute my numbers in. So I'm going to substitute 8 for A. So I'm going to have 8 squared, plus I'm going to substitute 15 in for B, 15 squared, equals C squared. 8 squared means 8 times 8, which will give me 64, plus 15 squared, which means 15 times 15, which is going to give me 225. Again, if you need to use a calculator, that's fine. We also have our index cards that we did in class that do have these answers for you. That's equals c squared because I don't have a value for c. My next step is to add these two numbers. 64 plus 225 is going to give me 289 equals c squared. Okay, we're almost there. I'm looking for c. I have c squared. So I need to do the opposite or inverse of squaring, which is taking the square root. I'm going to take the square root using my radical symbol of 289 equals square root of c squared. Simply is going to give me c, the square root of 289. Again, if you need to use a calculator, feel free to do so. 289 square root is going to give me 17. Therefore, my hypotenuse, my c, is going to be 17. All right, let's try one more here. I always start with my formula. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now let me identify my sides. I'm looking for my longest side, my hypotenuse, which is always going to be opposite of the right angle in a right triangle. This is going to be my c. These are interchangeable. Doesn't matter which is leg A, which is leg B. So I'm going to make 2 leg A and 13 leg B. My next step is to substitute my numbers in. 2 will be substituted in for A. So it's going to be 2 squared plus, I'm going to substitute 13 in for B. 13 squared equals c squared. My next step is to square my numbers. So 2 squared, or 2 times 2, is going to be 4, plus 13 squared. And 13 times 13 is going to give me 169, equals c squared. My next step is going to be to add these two numbers, which will give me 173, equals c squared. Now I'm looking for c, not c squared, so I'm going to use inverse operations. The opposite of squaring a number is taking its square root. Using my radical symbol, I'm going to say the square root of 173 is going to be equal to the square root of c squared. The square root of c squared is simply c. Now the square root of 173, as you may recognize it as a non-perfect square. Perfectly fine to take your calculator out, put in 173. We're going to use a square root. It gives me a long number, 13.1529. Let's go ahead and just take that over to the tens place. So I'm going to put my 13 here. Point, I have 1, 5. Well, I have a 5 after the 1. That means my 1 is going to become a 2, and my answer is going to be 13.2. Okay, as you know, we're going to start with our equation of formula again. So I'm going to start with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now I'm finding my hypotenuse. My hypotenuse is my c, and it's opposite my right angle in my right triangle. Now I have these two legs here. Doesn't matter which is a or b. I'll make 11a. I'll make 10b. My second step is to substitute in my numbers. So I'm going to substitute 11 for a. So 11 squared plus, I'm going to substitute 10 in for b. 10 squared equals c squared. Now 11 squared is going to give me 121, because 11 times 11 is 121, plus 10 squared, which is 10 times 10, which is 100, equals c squared. I'm going to now add 121 plus 100, which will give me 221, equals c squared. As we are looking for c, I'm going to use inverse operations and take the square root of c and take the square root using my radical symbol of 221. C equals, what's the square root of 221? I will use my calculator. 221, take the square root, 14.866. All right, let me go ahead and take that to my nearest tens place. So 14.86, since that's a 6, my 8 becomes a 9. C equals 14.9. going to do one more example. As you know, we start with our, you guessed it, formula. We're starting with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'm looking at my right triangle here. My hypotenuse is always c. My hypotenuse is opposite the right angle in my right triangle. Legs are interchangeable, so I will make 30 leg A and 40 could be leg B. Next thing I'm going to do is substitute in my numbers. So I'm going to substitute 30 for A, so 30 squared, plus and 40 for B, 40 squared, equals c squared. Now, 30 squared is 30 times 30, which is 900, plus 40 squared, which is 40 times 40, which gives me 1600, equals c squared. I'm going to add these two. 900 plus 1600 will give me 2500, equals c squared. I'm looking for c, not c squared. I'm going to use inverse operations. The opposite of squaring is taking the square root. I'll use my radical symbol and take the square root of 2500. And I'm going to take the square root of c squared, which will simply give me c. The square root of 2500, you can use a calculator if you'd like, ends up being 50. For your assignment today, I am going to be posting this maze. You're going to print it out, take a photo of it, and hand it in either through Google Classroom or you can just email it to me and attach that photo. Now, your first example here that you're going to be working with, and let me start you off with that, is going to be finding the hypotenuse of this right triangle. Now, I'm going to copy it down here just to make it a little bit easier for myself. You can either copy it or do all your work right on here. We're looking for the hypotenuse. I have a leg of 15. I have a leg of 20. I'm always going to start with my formula. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'm going to make 15 side A and I'm going to make 20 my leg B here. Now I'm going to substitute my numbers in. So 15 squared plus 20 squared equals c squared. All right. Well, now 15 squared is going to give me 15 times 50, which is 225, plus 20 squared, which is going to give me 20 times 20, which is 400, equals c squared. Next thing I'm going to do is add these two numbers. 225 plus 400 is going to give me 625, equals c squared. Because I'm looking for c, not c squared, I'm going to take the square root. I'm going to do the inverse operation of squaring and take the square root using my radical symbol. 620 square root of 625 equals the square root of c squared, which is simply c equals. I'm going to take the square root of 625. I'm going to get 25. When you're looking at your work, you're going to pick your answer. So for example, this is 35, so we're not going to be going in this direction in the maze. This is 625, you're not going to be going that direction. Your answer for C was 25, therefore you could shade this part in, and this is the next triangle that you're going to find the missing hypotenuse for. Good luck and thank you for watching the video.